Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Phil for another very special spoiler discussion. This is, of course, The Mandalorian, Chapter 22, Guns for Hire, directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, starring Jack Black to get out of the way. It's very early in the morning recording this. I say very early in the morning. This isn't America. It's not dropped at like midnight or 3 a.m. It's 8 a.m. over here. But I have the day off work. There's a big event happening this weekend, Star Wars Celebration. We're all traveling down at separate points. Dave tonight, yourself and me tomorrow. Loads of other people are already there that we know. So we're going to do our spoiler discussion earlier today. So it's a bit different. We've both seen the episode once. We've just finished watching the episode. Whereas normally, in a few hours, we're able to think about it, we're able to read up on it. So we're going in pretty blind. And the reason why is because, as I said, Star Wars Celebration. There's a lot of stuff to do. So this is last video, at least until we get to the hotel. So that being said, Phil, how are you doing tonight? How are you doing this morning?
I am all right, thank you. As I said to you before I came out, I have not slept yet. I'm getting everything ready for Celebration, which means I've been working around the clock to get Kanan done, but getting there. And I was excited to watch this morning's episode. Not so excited now to talk about it, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody that's watching at home, we appreciate we won't have people on the live stream. The episode has just come out. Do comment your thoughts after you've watched it later on. We'll reply to any comments that do come through. Your thoughts on the episode, certain characters, certain actors, certain eras returning. I guess we can also say maybe 3 of the biggest guest stars on The Mandalorian so far. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about, and as I said, do comment and we'll get back to you. As of this week's a bit different to normal, and if you like this video, there's a lot more Star Wars coming. As we keep saying, we're Star Wars Celebration from Friday. There's going to be hopefully a lot of stuff on the channel. The most important thing is we have a good time when we're there, and any videos that we can do we'll put up on the channel, so there will be a lot more Star Wars stuff. It just might not be as regimented as the last couple of last year was. And if you want to find out about other videos, what else we've got coming up, go get us on social media. Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy. Link to Redbubble in the description below. But aside from this, Phil, let's sort of get cracking. Firstly, I want to talk about Bryce Dallas Howard. We knew she was coming back to episode 6.
Yep.
This is her 4th directorial effort on I mean, I'd say The Mandalorian. One of them was the Book of Boba Fett, and this is her 3rd Mandalorian episode, so 4 in total. What were your thoughts on, we knew she was doing episode 6. We had a 44-minute runtime. Before you watched it, what were you thinking?
To be fair, I really enjoyed the episode she's done so far. Her first one, obviously, was chapter 3? The first one she did?
Might have been.
Yeah, chapter 3 with the ATST and everything. So what I've seen of her so far, I've enjoyed. I was looking forward to seeing her come back to do more. I think, so far I've enjoyed what she's done. And I was really hyped for this. I say was. We'll get into it as the episode goes on, because I know even between Dave and myself, we've already got very differing opinions on this episode. So I'm just to hear your thoughts on it. But I know I was excited to see her come back. And to be fair, don't get me wrong, I don't think this is. Yeah, we'll cover my thoughts properly later. But I was looking forward to her coming back for sure, because from what she's done so far, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I was hyped for her to come back. I think given how good her episodes have been so far, she's very welcome within Star Wars, if that's like the politest of terms. That, not only has her dad directed a great film, she's directed so many great episodes of TV. I think a lot of people are in agreement that love to see her on a TV series when the time comes. On a TV series, direct a film, if that opportunity were to come for her, which is something I sort of gravitate towards. And this episode today, my sort of initial thoughts on it, as it's so early. It's been watched once. It's not that there's not a lot to process. Dave sent the message where he says it felt like a live action episode of the Clone Wars, and I kind of agree. Because I've seen it once. It's harder. Basically, to the Mandalorian story, it just felt like there was 10 minutes of 10 minutes of The Mandalorian. And then the rest was just very odd. I think the Clone Wars, the live action Clone Wars episode, I'm in agreement with. I liked the episode. I just, in the grand scheme of things, I think because I was more hyped for it. I think because of how good and story purpose progressing her episodes have been, it's a bit different. But there's some stuff I really liked and there's some stuff I didn't. And I think that's probably going to be the easy thing for me to say with it. and kind of if we start getting into these where it might open, let's talk the opening scene. We're not going to do it scene by scene, but the pre what would you even call it? It's not a title sequence. It's like the pre-chapter reveal, isn't it? The title reveal.
Yeah. Essentially a mini prologue.
Yeah, listen. There was a brief. This is going to sound real. There was a brief moment, right, where I thought that Thrawn was on the speaker. And
yep,
the first time it actually was like, I was like, that's not Lance Mikkelsen, is it? And again, because I've built up in my head, Bryce gets the big episodes. Filoni, I think Filoni's written this episode. Obviously, very quickly we realized it wasn't. It was the Mandalorian. I was like, great. Sasha Banks, Mercedes Vanana, I guess we need to call her now, had said that she wasn't doing an episode this season, but the actual said they were. So, I'll go with him because he said it more recently and for obvious reasons. But I was like, okay, Bo-Katan's recruited the Mandalorians. Great, I'm up for this. I can get away with the cheesy opening just because the concept of the episode is they're doing bounty work. Meanwhile, we also need to see what they're up to get them recruited. My issues then come a little bit after where I shared a meme on my Instagram last night, and everyone's seen it. It's that. So I did a Mandalorian meme a couple of years ago. It's like every episode of Mandalorian, they paint the dog green. And it's like they're wearing a bucket on their head. And they're like, we've got to get the milk. And I don't know if you've seen this. It's like a sketch thing that came out ages ago. It felt like that meme comes out that, we need to speak to the people. Yeah, but you do a mission for us first. It felt very season 1, if I'm being honest. But we've actually got a couple of people in the comments already. This episode didn't feel like Star Wars at all from Michaela Millette. So why Dylan's getting nerfed so much? He used to have a lot of weapons. Man, he has a pistol and his glove attachments. Good point. And he did have the Darksaber for an episode and used it once. But yeah, this could be weird to talk about. Let's just talk. I want your thoughts. Maybe not necessarily the opening, but where it brought us into. Like, just what are your thoughts on how it started and setting up, the Guns for Hire. Great title, by the way.
Great title. I thought the opening was awful. I think it's one of the worst written bits of Star Wars I've ever seen. Like, that I can't, unfortunately, give it any praise because it was so cheesy, so poorly written, and so poorly acted. It was so cringeworthy. I'm like, this is... I almost turned it off. In the first few minutes, like, no, this is not well. Yeah, I can't actually give anything positive on it. I would like to. I was trying to think because I don't like to bag on Phill. I try and look for the positives, and there are some positives in this episode that we'll get to later. But the opening, I just went into going, this is just going to be awful. It set a precedent that I was not going to enjoy it, and I didn't. But no, it was so cheesy. It was so, yeah, it was just awful.
No, that's very fair to say. And the thing is, especially like me and you, like, we don't normally pop up for stuff like that. Like, this is terrible. This felt, as I said, the live action Clone Wars is probably the best thing because as great as the Clone Wars is, you do have some clangers in there, and there's no hiding that. And that's the way the series has always been, and that's the way I look at a lot of these series. When it's at its best, it's like as good as Star Wars is, and when it's not firing like when other times within the Star Wars film. So, yeah. The opening was very weird, and then I thought there'd be like a payoff or something, but we never saw those characters again. And then even bringing into the world, I was the dystopian. It was almost like not a secondary like Bespin, but like look at this like unbelievable posh built society. And I will just say, let's just get the obvious. Jack Black in Star Wars. Mario film's out today. I never thought I would ever see him in a Star Wars film. And listen, I was very happy when he turned up because there's nothing I wouldn't want to watch Jack Black in. He's an absolute legend. Now, I didn't realize it was Lizzo in the credits. I'm not good with music. I'm sure other people clocked that straight away. So that's on me.
She's a musician. Oh, fair.
Yeah, okay. I know she's a musician. I
didn't know. I when it came up as Lizzo in the credits, I'm like, who?
Yeah, this is it, and this is I know I'm not big on music, so that's on me, but it's a kind of good thing because
I am big on music, but just it's obviously a very different type.
Yeah, I think as well with stuff like that though, it's if you know who it is, it will take you. Like there'll be kids watching that might not know who Jack Black is, which is equally as disturbing. But kind of my thoughts with that, it took me about 2 minutes to process that Jack Black's in an episode of The Mandalorian. And let's be blunt, he's playing Jack Black. And listen, I'm happy for that. But it really took me out of the episodes. And I was able to move on, which is fine. I just didn't then enjoy the episode. I think then Doc Brown pops up a minute later. And listen, it's great to have Christopher Lloyd pop up and stuff. I'm glad he just wasn't playing a scientist because that would have been too easy. But then it was like, oh, we've got the battle droids. And I'm like, whoa. I was like, hold on a minute. Like, Bad Batch has had battle droids post Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Rebels has had droids post Clone Wars. The new Fallen Order game has got droids post Clone Wars. And then it was like again today. And it's like, oh, okay, we've made the trip live action. And listen, it's great seeing / hearing them. But I really struggled to be entertained by this. And I think my issue inherently was it felt too much of a side quest. And I know that's something people say a lot in season 1. But at times it was justified, but it didn't feel like it did today, where it was literally do this mission and only then can you speak to them. And I genuinely struggled with that. And I wasn't invested in the story. I'm glad it wasn't just a rehash of here's a whole unit of battle droids. Like we're just going to carve them up. But a whole like droid conspiracy for me, doing that. How many years is it after the Clone Wars? 29 years after the Clone Wars at this point in time? 30 years?
It is, 30 odd years, yeah.
Having like an old, oh my God, CIS, politics thing sort of come in. I'm not going to be a dick, but it's the wrong era to be doing this. You can do that in between 3 and 4. You don't do that like post original trilogy.
So for me, if they'd gone back as a flashback to like they did in season 1 to Mando's origin, so Din Djarin when he is rescued by Death Watch from the Super Master Droids, if they had gone back and done something like that, I would have been well up for it. Give me live action clones, give me live action B1s and B2s. Don't get me wrong, Henry Matthew would do live action battle droids is always a pleasant experience, and I like the nods to it. I like the Ugnaughts. Again, going back to season 1 Queel, I liked a lot of what happened in terms of the not even Easter eggs, just the little nostalgia trips, I guess. But it felt so clunky, and it felt so, as you said, side quest, and it was just. Christopher Lloyd was cool, but Jack Black took me out of it far too much. I didn't even enjoy him in this. I thought it was Jack Black, which isn't a good thing because he has a lot of range. This was just him being him, and I couldn't. There's some fun parts of the episode, like the fact we have Din just kicking the B2s to find out which one was defective. Like that actually makes perfect sense. The dichotomy between Din and Bo when they go backwards and forwards between whose way is best, I thought was great. And you got the droid bar, which is the reversion of every other bar in Star Wars, which is we don't serve your kind here. Obviously go back to episode 4, they kick 3PO and R2 out of the cantina. So it's the opposite effect. I like little pieces like that, but on the whole, as you say, it was very side quest and it was very, I thought it was extremely poor.
Yeah, and we've got a comment. I agree. It's a side quest episode should have been more focused on getting the Mando story, not just 4 minutes of them at the end. And this, and I don't like doing that. Oh, should have been this, should have been that, should have been this. But this felt like if these are characters we spent time with last season, there's clearly been some stuff happening between seasons we didn't know about, things that were alluded to. It felt far too quick for this to be like 5-10 minutes at the end. And I think that's where I kind of struggled was the droid stuff. As I said, I'm fine for it. But it just felt off like for the timing of how they were used today. And even the way, I don't think it's an issue of the directing. I think this is a writing issue. Just the writing was off point for what this episode could have been, what it maybe should have been, and the importance of, even jumping so far as to the end. Reclaiming the Darksaber is the final shot, and it's like, here's a small green field with like 20 people.
But it was also done the most anticlimactic and awful.
Yeah, way. Like here's 30 minutes of setting this up. now here's your 5 minutes of what we need to do to be continued. And I'm not sure how I feel at this point in time. Again, we've seen it once. We're both fresh out of watching it as well, and I'm very curious to know what other people think. I know Dave said it was a lot of fun, and
My
I
best mate Matt just messaged me going, "Oh, this week's Mando's amazing." I'm like, I couldn't disagree more.
And this is it. And listen, maybe there's going to be people that love it. Maybe that, and I'm not going to use this to chastise any animated shows at all. But what I think is, I'm scanning to it. There's a lot of people enjoying it, actually. I wonder if there's a lot of people that have never watched the animated series that might be enjoying it as well. I don't mean that in a disrespectful term, but they might not have seen episodes or stories like this before. And that's something I'm sort of thinking about consciously in the back of my mind. But I mean, I don't even have much to say on the droids, if I'm being honest. I mean, let's talk Jack Black. And this is where I struggle, right? 2 weeks ago, we had this, or 3 weeks ago, we had the great episode of Coruscant. Here's reprogrammed Imperial people. We've put them through, we've given them numbers. We've given them new identities. We've reformed them. And it's played up quite, we were comparing it to Andor, a lot of people were, which was very valid to compare it to. And then today we've got the whole premise of like, oh yeah, these guys were Imperial once. And now it's like, haha, he's Imperial, so there's no weapons, and there's a quest. And it felt like comic relief compared to what it was in the past. And I don't want to sort of chastise that as well. Say, I'm very comfortable with different types of politics and Star Wars, but I sort of felt like it undermines the Katie O'Brien storyline. I don't know if that's me looking into it too deep as well.
I mean,
yeah,
it's fine. Again, clunky. Best is the best way I can describe it. It was because the problem I have actually is I like the premise. I like investigative parts. I like in Clone Wars. I've just finished watching Rebels, for example. We have AP5, who we all know I despise, and even he had his place. The droids are important in the Star Wars universe, but basically this episode was a bad ripoff of WALL-E, where it's like, cool, humans become to rely on droids, and it's just the same here. But not only that, actually, it was when the droids, again, they were talking about, oh, if they end up replacing us, they replace us with humans. Like, why just humans? What about every other species in the galaxy? If, again, another part of poor writing, it's just they mentioned, organics gave us life. It's the least we can do. Like, well, again, okay, yes, you are built by organics, but there's more to. Yeah, I just felt it was poorly written. Like, there's so many good elements that could have gone well. You had the recipe to make shepherd's pie. You made a dog's dinner. That's basically how I felt.
Yeah, that's very fair as well. We've just got a comment by Dave as well that he's off to watch the Italian plumber get out some pipes.
Nice.
He's off to watch another Jack Black feature. That's two in one day. Obviously, Super Mario's out today. Christ needs to review. I'm quite behind on stuff. But let's also let's follow up the droid stuff. So I want to talk Doc Brown. I'm sorry, registry. I can't remember what his code name or his character name is. But what were your thoughts on this premise that this controller, he's disgruntled from them being an independent system? He talks about how great Cam Dooku is, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then they do the, no one wants to hear about politics. Am I right? Now, listen, I obviously a lot of people don't like politics in Star Wars. That's absolutely fine. It just felt like, again, like timing I'm struggling with this. That I get it if it's a different era, but that's like 2 generations ago now. That's 2 governments ago. That's not. Yeah, that's like someone talking like, what if it was like the 80s? Thatcher's Britain. Obviously, I'd rather die than be in there. But it's one of those kind of things where I'm just like, should it be here? And this is why, like, a lot of people harp on fame, which is really unfair at times. But there are certain, was it Chapter 5 of Season 1? When we had the Han Solo ripoff on Tatooine?
Yes.
Do you remember that? It felt like that, like, when he delivers, but when he can really go off tangent and focus on the stuff from before, it felt like way too much of that.
Yeah.
I've got no issue with this. One of the amazing things that the Clone Wars did and developed across, however many years it was airing, was the fact that the independent systems weren't bad guys. Yes, they were, villains to the compass of the story. Yes, they had a leader that was a Sith member, but the morals within that series were always that they are, what's the words? There are good people on both sides. There are equal people, and that was some of the best of Clone Wars, was like politics. And to try and shoehorn something in 30 seconds in a live action episode, not related to it, felt very tough. I've enjoyed the season, but I felt like every episode is missing something. I feel like I'm wanting more. Maybe I'm being selfish. It's very fair to say. I know some other people have been like that. For me personally, I've really enjoyed season 3. I think it's.
Oh, I think season 3 is the strongest so far. But the problem I've got is that if you've watched any of the videos I've been on, either on here or on Ones of the Force, I always try and give the most positive spin I can. I always look for the best, and I always give things the fairest shout. And in fact, I even was messaging you guys the other day because whilst I was working on my thing cosplay, I watched the sequel trilogy. And I was actually giving it even more praise. Even Rise of Skywalker feels better when you watch all 3 in a row. If you actually sit and binge 7, 8, and 9, it actually does flow a little better. And actually, it has aged a little better in the 3 years since. I've not watched it in a couple of years. So I was giving it more praise, as George can attest to. But with this, again, I get back to it. The fact, though, you have him. I don't mind the politics. I don't mind the fact they're shoving it in there in terms of. I like that someone's referencing, like, he's survives through government. He actually knows what he likes. I get that. I actually enjoyed that part of the speech. What I didn't like was just a giant red button, just hand over and over. Don't make me press this giant red button. And it felt cartoony, which is a problem because the entire episode felt like an animated episode, and it doesn't work in live action.
Yeah, I mean, that's very fair to say, and kind of in line of that. I mean, going back to Bryce Dallas Howard directing, I've got no issue with directing. I think it's been directed very well. I can't fault how the directing, the approach, the action sequences. I think all my issues stem with the writing. And a big thing of this is if we jump to the ending, right? Finally, we've done the side mission. You got the key to the city. Brilliant. Let's get away from that. Let's just cut to the Mandalorians. I like the idea that they've found a new home. They've got a new leader, and like we've said, and people won't know this. People that haven't watched animated shows won't know this, which is equally as important. That the Mandalorians are almost a culture of fighting, right? They're the best warriors. It's too early in the galaxy. And I think what's kind of hit me was we had this great moment where Bo-Katan and I challenged for the leadership. I don't felt like we'd had enough time with them to justify her challenging. We hadn't been given the circumstances behind it too much. It just felt like, let's truck in this scene, let's give her the darksaber quickly. I liked the fight. It looked great seeing how the Mandalorians fight in live action. I think that's something we're going to see more of in the future. But where I'm kind of lost with was the moment in which they say, no one's going to think you're the leader until you have the darksaber, and then Din just conveniently, I did lose it in combat, and then you actually beat the thing that beat me. And listen, it's like the Elder One from Harry Potter, right? Harry's got it because he disarmed Draco, and Draco had it because he killed because he disarmed Dumbledore. I get that you can do that. I don't mind that sort of stuff. It just felt so not unearned, but it just felt like such a pivotal moment in such low-key circumstances, which is, I don't want to say frustrating. I think I said to you as soon as we came on before we hit live, Bo-Katan, I've had a theory, right? I mean, we've spoken about this every week. I've had 2 theories: that Bo-Katan would turn with the armor on Din to claim the saber, to then lead that group and cause a little civil war, or Bo would die, and Din will then lead Mandalore in her honor or whatnot. The low-key ending of today, I think, to me, and this is really arrogant to say this, cements that Bo-Katan is going to die. At some point in the series, whether it's a certain blue man who we're all hoping turns up, whether it's Moff Gideon getting revenge because we know he's on the run. I think Bo-Katan's fate is sealed, and that she has the saber, she has Mandalore, she has everyone. She's going to get people united, but I think she's not going to make it past season 3 now. And they've done such an incredible story with developing Bo-Katan. This is stemming back to Clone Wars as someone that began, against her own sister, against the throne. And this is when Filoni's writing does play. Filoni's so good at the long form storytelling, the mechanism of that long form story, and this is across eras, across different genres, animation and live action, across multiple seasons. I think it's going to end in disaster for Bo-Katan, and I think they're building up to it magnificently. So it says, what do we think Din's story is heading towards? I think it's him being the leader of Mandalore. I think it is still going to be that. The one thing I'll say, and I think I've said this a few weeks now, is that it's so clear that this season was written in mind without Grogu being there. And once again, I don't mind it. I know we had the Great Order 66 moment, and we hopefully get a bit more, but where season 2 ended of him being with Luke, I still think that was their plan to have Din by himself, maybe with Bo-Katan as co-stars this season. But I still think it's Din going to be on the throne of the Darksaber. I just think that what I will say about this season is we're in dire need now of the villain. And season 1 had this where I think Moff Gideon rocked up in episode 7 out of 8. And I think we're going to get something similar where whatever that threat is, we're going to get it in the next 2 weeks.
The problem is that Bo was supposed to be that big threat, and this is what the last 10 minutes was great, but I felt it was so anticlimactic. We've had the first 5 episodes have been building up to her gearing up to take the Darksaber back, but I thought it would be she'd get the fleet back, then challenge Din after they reclaim Mandalore, to then get the throne with the Darksaber, and that would have been her done, and then I would have been happy with that, but this felt rushed. It was a case we've had all this build up, and then it was, and now she has the Darksaber by convenience. In a way, I love the thinking behind it. Actually, I genuinely love the whole. Well, I believe in you, and I have a loophole for you because I want you to lead because I believe in you. I like that from Din. I actually like how she got the Darksaber. The problem I felt was she was there to get the fleet back, and then conveniently got the Darksaber rather than it be. We've had so much build up, and we've been talking about this week in, week out. Bo being the big bad. When's the showdown going to come? You know, I thought she was going to challenge him and go, okay, yeah, you're right. I've challenged you for the fleet. Now I'm going to challenge you for the Darksaber.
There's a moment where when they're on the little underground thing, and she's like, "What's your plan?" Haven't got it yet. Then they play her theme sort of quite hesitantly. And I'm like, "Oh, like are they weaving in that she might have to turn on him?" But again, if that is going to happen, it can't be in this episode. It can't be in front of like 20 people. It's got to be. It's got to be bigger. And this is it. This is where I'm lost with the writing to this episode. Now, listen, next week might more than make up for it. The week after might more than make up for it. And this is why I'm quite hesitant when it's coming down to TV shows, talk about stuff like this. I would much rather have that chat, have that discussion when it's all done and dusted and we can look at the overarching season as a whole. And that's kind of how I am today. That although I've sort of gone on the writing a bit, if the writing's actually part of a bigger plan, then I'm fine for it. I just think on the week-to-week basis today's been a bit difficult. And as I said, I can't fault the directing. It's only the writing for me. I think the directing, as Bryce Dallas Howard is still superb. That's 4 episodes, and she's directed 4 great episodes.
To give it the positive spin on this one, though, if this is the worst episode of the season, and it was still good in effect and still fun, just it shows how good the rest has been. Like, it's been a cracking season, and I still put it at number 1 for me. It has been one hell of a well-written series, which is why I feel disappointed in this episode, because it just felt anticlimactic with the ending, and I enjoyed it, and I love having Matt Wood back. I love B1s. You know, I love my droids. I was really happy with a lot of it. It just, the writing wasn't up to par, which is odd considering the quality of the rest of the season. And that's the best I can give it. It was good, but in comparison to the rest, it felt awful.
No, I'm with you. I've got those exact same vibes of it, and this is it. If this is the the worst of a great bunch, then I'll take it, because this is comfortably not the worst episode of The Mandalorian at all. I mean, with 22 chapters in, there's been a whole variety of different episodes, different stories, different webs coming together. And I think because of how strong last week's one as well, it made this one maybe even tougher act to follow. But I'm certainly there. And I think, listen, if next week opens with just like... One of my favorite shots last week was Din's ship just being followed by Bo-Katan's in hyperspace. And I watched Return of the Jedi last night, and you get the amazing moment of the Rebel fleet coming into hyperspace. When okay, this is happening. If you get the Mandalorian fleet in hyperspace coming out, that's going to just look incredible next week, and it will make everything feel earned. And this is what I'm kind of excited for. That we know Moff Gideon's going to appear at some point in the last 2 episodes. We don't know how or what his circumstances are. We've got a big Star Wars event this weekend as well. To hype up. So we don't know what on earth is going to happen to the Mandalorian. But what I will say is that we will be there to cover it. And kind of, I'm ready to do final thoughts. This is the shortest one, which says a lot. But listen, I think this week's episode, I'm not with it on the writing. I'm with it on the directing. I'm with it on the key story points. But there's something missing and a few 2 big guest stars that can take out the episode. And for me, I'll rewatch it. I was watching my dad. So I'll watch it when he's back from work tonight. But aside from that, I'm ready for next week. I'm ready for this weekend. I'm ready for an incredible weekend. But Phill, before we talk about Celebration, your final thoughts?
Yeah, to be fair, as I said, throughout this episode, I try and give things the best positive spin because I am a fanboy. And there's plenty of things for me to talk about that I enjoyed. Matt Wood being my highlight. And I know that's an odd one considering Jack Black, but I love B1s. I love the humor. And when you compare Episode 1 B1s to the Clone Wars and Beyond B1s, it's so jarring, but in a good way. Once you have the humor down pat, it's just fantastic. And there's some cool moments, and I really enjoyed the music of this episode as well. I haven't spoken about that, but I thought the music was really on point this week. But I felt anticlimactic, not well written, but if it's the worst of a good bunch, I will take it. And I will say this. Although it was poorly written, I'm loving the dialogue and the interactions between Bo-Katan and Din Djarin, Katie Sackhoff, and Pedro Pascal. It's not just the characters, it's the actors. They play off each other so well. The fact that you have Pedro Pascal in a helmet convey as much emotion to Bo as she does to him, and they can read it and they can play off each other. Fantastic. So for me, some good points in probably my least favorite episode of the entire Mandalorian.
Yeah, that's very fair. And also Brendan Wayne and Steve Crowder as well, who we know have done most of the suits of this year. And even going back to the gallery season 1, when we knew that those two were working, and Pedro Pascal said from day one that the 3 of us just work in sync. We've all been there doing it together. And obviously, Last was filming, the reports are that he's done the least work this season compared to others. But the fact that the 3 of them have built that relationship with each other, knowing it's not something like Prowse and James Earl Jones, where one was aggrieved that they weren't, the voice as well. It's never been that with the other 2, and I like the fact, and Pedro Pascal I think said this on TV recently, that those 2 have got the co-starring credits now that they should have as they should have had from the get-go, which is equally as important. And as you're right, the performance in costumes such talent with them has been pretty great. And that being said, that's going to do it for this episode of Mandalorian spoiler discussion, chapter 22. People at home, comment your thoughts if you're watching later on. As I said, we've done this early, so we appreciate people commenting because I didn't expect any comments, if I'm being honest. And listen, we're at Star Celebration from tomorrow. There's a lot of stuff happening. We're very lucky with the panels we've been in. Obviously, the more important thing is I get to see you and Dave together. We've got Robin as well. A lot of people have been involved in this channel there. Tons of people we know who don't do YouTube are going to be there. It's going to be an amazing, amazing weekend. If you do see us, come say hi. We have some Cinema Savvy stickers to hand out, so please do that if you see us, if you are going. But aside from that, we will try and have videos up. I say we. It might be me. It might be other people. We're all busy. We've got our own lives. We're all excited to be there. So what I'm going to say with regards to that, hit the subscribe button if you want some Star Wars Celebration coverage. It could be any coverage. We don't know what that's going to be yet. My new camera has arrived, thank God, so I can at least get some decent video stuff moving forward. But yeah, it's going to be a pretty amazing weekend. I'm excited. We think that it's going to be some Mandalorian stuff on the Friday, based off the description will be at that Celebration stage panel. And as I said, details we'll have more as soon as we know what they are. So thank you to everyone that's been watching. It's been commenting as always. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
See ya.